Dear Professor Dr. Teresa Franklin and Professor Dr. Douglas Franklin. It's a great honor for us to have with you in our institutional corporate coordination. And let me to give the floor to you just to introduce yourself. Please, Dr. Teresa.
Well, thank you. It's so nice to be here with you today. I'm an emeriti professor from Ohio University in instructional technology, but I'm also a Fulbright Specialist while I'm here in Eskişehir at ESTU. And so I have been working in education for over 40 years and looked at many different things. My research focuses on accreditation, program accreditation and review, instructional technology and how it's integrated into classrooms for teaching and learning to improve the teaching and learning process. And I also have a research area in game design, virtual environments, and augmented reality. So I've done some work in those areas as well. I've been coming to Turkey for now since 1999. I started here with Dr. Aytekin İsmen, who was a professor at Sakarya University. And I worked with preparing teachers and K-12 school situations with him, and also with working with the faculty to improve their skills in teaching and learning.
Thank you very much for that brief information. Douglas Franklin.
Thank you for having us. I've worked in higher education at various institutions for about 45 years. I started out my career at the University of Texas Health Science in Houston. I then moved to Ohio University, where I took a position as an assistant dean. Moved at various different roles and functions in that university, some academic, some administrative. I ended up retiring as the assistant dean in student affairs for research evaluation and planning. So I have a very diverse background in how a university works, tend to be a little bit more global. My PhD is in higher education. I have an interest in the development of quality assurance programs within institutions of higher education. And I was fortunate to actually trail Dr. Teresa to Sakarya University upon my retirement. And I did not realize I would be working. I just thought I would be in the apartment or walking around town, cooking and cleaning. And to my delight, Dr. Elmas, who was the rector at the time, invited me to work with him and to teach him about American accreditation, American higher education systems, policy development, process development and evaluation. And so I spent the time working with Dr. Elmas, and I've been coming back every year to work at the International Quality Assurance Conference. I've presented there numerous times, and it's been a real joy, and I've been part of the development of the YOCOC process. So as Dr. Teresa is, she's an observer and evaluator for YOCOC, and so that's one of the reasons why I'm here.
Thank you very much for introducing yourself, and greetings from Radio Estü to Professor Dr. Muzaffer Elmas and Professor Dr. Aytekin İsmen. And the aim of this program, you know, in the program of Fulbright, we just indicated in our first objective to expand the awareness about internal quality system of higher education. Within this context, I just would like to ask some questions to you, and let me start. Please, can you describe your background in higher education and your experiences also working with Turkish higher education?
Well, we, as Dr. Douglas said earlier, we have been working with them for some time. I was here as a Fulbright scholar in 2013-14, which is when Dr. Douglas came with me. And we started working with Dr. Elmas then. Probably Doug worked more with him than I did at that time because I had other Fulbright responsibilities. We had done all this accreditation and program review work in the United States and in Saudi Arabia, in Jordan, in Oman, Qatar, just all different places around the world that we had worked before we really began working with Dr. Elmas here in Turkey. And so we had a lot of experience, and we had a more global perspective on how accreditation and program review possibly works. I think. And so in talking with Dr. Elmas as we met there at Sakarya University, where he was the rector, we had an opportunity to really, you know, talk about different things we had seen happen in different countries and in different programs around the world. And so I think that kind of started our process.
Yeah, I would agree. You know, the interesting thing is that one meeting begets another meeting, begets another meeting, begets another meeting. And so when we think about what we've done, primarily in Turkey, when we come to a conference, people find out that they have an interest in what we're doing. They have an interest in quality assurance. And so out of that experience, we went and we spoke at Coachella. Dr. Teresa went to an institution, I cannot remember what it was, but one of her students, Bilkit,
Yeah.
one of her students is a faculty member there, so she went there and spoke. We went to a couple of institutions in Istanbul. I went to Çanakkale and spoke at a conference there. I went to a conference at Dr. Elmas's request in Istanbul. It was a European connection where I talked about American accreditation in higher education. So it's really an opportunity to take our background and our understanding of the evaluation and the accreditation process from where we worked and how to implement that into a relatively new system. Evaluation, formal evaluation and accreditation in Turkey is relatively new. Institutional accreditation in Turkey is extremely new. It's only been around for 3 to 4 or 5 years. It's currently being developed. And that's one of the reasons why I was interested in coming to ESTU, is to gather information about what YOCOC could do to better the process, to make it less onerous, and to make it more effective.
Thank you very much for your explanation, and again, it's a great pleasure for us to host you in Radio S2 and Turkey as well. And I know, of course, the aim of that you're being here, I mean visiting S2, but maybe our audience would like to know that. So could you please tell me the purpose of your visit and how long will you be working in S2?
Well, we're going to be here 6 weeks, but we won't be here in Eskişehir that entire time. We're actually going to some other institutions and other locations too, as part of this process of gathering information about accreditation and institutional external evaluation. And so we will be moving from several other places, but predominantly we'll be here for most of the time. And what we hope to do, or what we hope to do for Eskişehir University, Technical University, is to support them and help them think about and discuss the process of the institutional external evaluation. And so we have been talking to faculty. We've had some virtual presentations, some face-to-face meetings and interviews where we've gathered information and data to see what's going on, because you can't really change things unless you know, first of all, what exactly is going on. And so one of the things we do is we talk to different groups, faculties, departments, academic staff, administrative staff, and we ask them, you know, how are you putting quality into your process here at ESTU? And then we talk about that process that they're doing, and maybe it's great, maybe we offer some suggestions, it just depends. But basically, we are helping, we hope, to support them in this university in its process.
I think to add to that, my primary role is as a UCOC evaluator and observer. I think Dr. Teresa has a much more formal requirements because she's a Fulbright Specialist. But for me, I'm a little bit more freewheeling. Probably the best time that I've had since I've been to Eskişehir Tech is the information meetings that we've had. And what that does is it does a couple of things. The first thing is it allows us to have information. We kind of get information about processes. Everybody seems to be very excited about telling us who they are, what their program does. The other thing it does, and I've just noticed this anytime that I'm at a meeting where I'm asking questions, is it provides them with a unique opportunity to undergo the perception of external evaluation. One thing I really want to make sure everybody understands is that this is not about evaluation. This is about observation. This is about support. I'm trying to help YOCOC help Eskişehir. That said, we even had the same experience when we were at YOCOC, because they were very surprised when we came away from our trip with observations. And they're very, I tend to be very forthright in my opinions. I tend to be very direct. If I observe something, I want them to understand this is what I observed. Your job is to help clarify or validate my observation. And so understanding that they will eventually have to go through an evaluation program. They will have an external evaluator that will come in, a group, that will have a set of questions that this is an opportunity actually for them to answer our questions in a very, what I consider a very benign environment. We're not here to evaluate anybody, we're here just to collect data. But it does give them a kind of an opening into the evaluation process.
Yeah, because the evaluators will have questions, and we've tried to, in some ways, mimic those questions.
Yeah.
And so it gives them a chance to begin to formulate their answers and how they would answer it, because when we ask a question, and then if we don't get the answer we would think someone might present, we ask another question.
Yeah.
And so it helps them refine. We hope it helps them refine what they would answer as part of an evaluation process, even that's not our role. Our role is more about supporting, about gathering information, informing. I've done several presentations about program review and about the YOCOC process, and so it gives them an opportunity to gather that information themselves and see what kinds of things are maybe the expectation down the line when the actual external evaluation occurs.
Yeah, actually, on behalf of everyone, I just would like to thank you for your contribution, and for your supporting to external evaluation process.
Sure.
And so let me to ask you the activities, in which you have been or will be engaged. You just tell a little bit your activities. You just met with some kinds of groups, Maybe you would like to say something else.
Well, I think the presentations have been virtual, so the faculty can actually view the presentation from their house or wherever they're located. It's not one of those things where they have to come into campus. So it's really a very easy way for them to obtain information on program learning outcomes and how to develop them. I'll have a presentation later on curriculum. This afternoon I'm talking to students. So the students will have an opportunity to learn about this process, this quality process that ESTU is involved in. Then there will be some discussion of active learning pedagogies and how to increase the activity in your class to promote learning. And then I think at the very end, I have some wrap-up things of here's what we've found from our meetings, here's what we've heard from people that we've talked to and observed and interviewed, and there'll be a presentation to the entire campus that will be virtual, and we can have discussion about findings from the information we've gathered.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And actually, Dr. Doug is involved in all of these too.
Yeah, I think, the things that I'm most interested in is gathering information, collecting people's comments. I had an email from one of the participants today that needed some clarification on some of the things that we say. Some of it's translation issues, some of it's just a misunderstanding about what the process is or what some of the vernacular is. I have a meeting at sometime at the end with quality commissions. Again, the purpose of that mission or that meeting is to collect information so that YOCOC can be more efficient and effective in their delivery of this system. I think sometimes, even though they have very good representation, it's always helpful to have an external person come in and say, yes, we went to an institution and these were some of the problems or these were some of the benefits that they found within your program. So those are the things that I'm interested in. Primarily, I'm interested in talking to those quality commissions at the end of the experience.
And I think one thing I would say to the academic staff and to administrators, if they have questions that, or they have concerns, or they think they want clarification on something we presented, we would be happy for them to email us.
Absolutely.
They can email us. And
so we are just, announcing from here to our participants and faculty members and to students, administration also, all our stakeholders, that they can just send their questions to you and they can just send email to you.
Absolutely.
Would you like to share your email address from here?
Well, I was going to say, first of all, we're on the 3rd floor of the rector's building.
Yeah.
So if they want to come in face to face with
Okay.
a mask, we are happy to speak with them. We're wearing masks in the U.S. too, so we know how that is. But my email address is franklit@ohio.edu.
And mine is franklin@ohio.edu. Mine was the first Franklin at ohio.edu, and then Teresa was the second Franklin, and they didn't know what to do with the second Franklin, so they changed the last letter.
So the last letter.
The last 2 letters got lost the N and got a T.
Yes.
So for Teresa.
They've since changed that method.
Okay.
But you can tell we've been there a long time. We're under the old method of
Yes.
emails.
Okay, thanks for that nice conversation as well. And let me a little bit more speak on quality assurance. Maybe, just to expand the awareness. Could you please tell who is responsible for quality assurance in Turkish higher education and specifically in ESTÜ?
Well, in quality assurance and at ESTU, everyone is responsible, from the person who takes care of the grounds and prepares the lunches in the cafeteria or breakfasts in the cafeteria, the person who is, taking care of the buildings, all the way up to the rector. Everyone, faculties, academic staff, students, everyone is responsible, and everyone should take ownership of being part of that quality process, so that the quality becomes part of the culture within the campus, so that everyone knows that we are all working to get better, that it's continuously improving ourselves to get better and better over time. Because what we know from the research is that institutions and programs that work in a continuous improvement process, that is, they have a cycle of plan, do, check, and act, where they take their work and they continuously improve it, they will get better and better. And they rise to the top of the organizations.
I think that when you have a question, so I'm going to jump ahead to that question about the difference between quality control and quality assurance. Back in the day during the first industrial revolution, second industrial revolution, the way they would determine quality was a single point. It was a very small element, and so you think in terms of quality control as identifying one element within the organization, and then you're going to check it. And usually you check it at the end of the process. If it failed, then you'd go back and change it. In the 50s, under the theory developed by W. Edwards Deming, who helped Japan come out of World War II, he premised that if you got everybody involved in the quality assurance process, you would be better off. You could identify a failure within the system or the process early on, you could solve it, and you could move on to the next thing. There are numerous quality organizations. I was just looking at the American Society for Quality that defines the difference between quality control and quality assurance. But the basic premise is that if everybody is involved in this process, then they can identify flaws in the system or flaws in the process, and then they can revise those things. And so that's why it's critical to understand that it's a never-ending process. This Plan, Do, Check, Act is never-ending. It's not the end of a road where you go, oh, well, we got quality, let's move on. you're constantly reviewing this, and I think that's pretty much what's new in quality assurance in higher education, and that typically we think in terms of quality as being, well, that's Harvard is a quality institution because they produce quality graduates. Well, that's not necessarily true because they have good students when they first come in. What they need to understand is what are the processes within Harvard that are good, that lead to quality. So
here from Radio S2, we just announced for staff of S2, everybody is responsible to establish internal quality system, we may say here.
Yes.
From
Yes.
here.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that explanation and depth conversation as well. And could you please tell the differences between quality control and quality assurance?
I'll go ahead and
I
take
was going
that
to
one.
say, go ahead.
You
Talked about it a
Yeah, I
little
talked
bit
a little bit
earlier,
about
so go
it before,
ahead.
but it's this idea. We were watching television the other day, and they were talking about an asparagus farm in America. And they had one person checking the quality of the asparagus crop. And that was her job. The crop would come in, and she would look at it, and she would say, okay, well, we have a problem here, and she would go about doing her business. But a quality assurance process would have been to empower everybody in the field to say, this is not going to pass. So why pick it, ship it, pack it, and put it out, and then throw it away because the quality control person said it's not going to work.
Yeah.
It should have never been picked in the first place, or it should have been picked and discarded, and the person in the field should have been able to do that. That really is the difference. Quality control is a very narrow, small focus. Quality assurance is a very large focus, and it is part of an even larger focus of a quality system. And so each one of those processes feed into that quality system and that quality assurance.
So, why do you think it is everyone's reasonability?
Well, I think it's everybody's responsibility because that's the best way to accomplish it. One of the things I noticed in your ISER, which is your individual or institutional self-study report, was the question of developing an institutional culture of quality. You cannot develop an institutional culture of quality with a small group of people doing quality. It has to be everybody's responsibility. In America, Ford, which is the largest automotive company in the world, their mantra is quality is job one. Anybody on the line can pull a lever and stop the process if they find a flaw. It's a little bit more difficult in higher education, but everybody, from the academic staff to the people working outside, it's evident if there's a culture of quality there. If they understand the language, if they speak the same language, and they understand they have a same goal and the same value system, then it tends to work better. If you think in terms of when you're in a group, in your organization, does that organization have the same value sets? And is that value set articulated? If it is, your group is going to do what they're going to accomplish what they want to. If they do not have the same values, if they're not articulated, if somebody's going off and doing their own thing, you will not have a contiguous group, you will not have a cohesive group, and you will not accomplish your end result. And that is the reason why it's important that everybody is in the system and understands the process.
And you have to remember that higher education has their goal is to educate students that are going to be future employees for industries in Turkey. And so what you want is you want everyone working toward that goal of creating a quality employee for the future of Turkey. And so when everyone is working on this and everyone is focused on creating the best learning opportunities, the best field experience, the best internships, all of this leads to a quality education for a student. And that's really what the goal is in the end. It's all about the student. The student is really your product in a sense, because they are the ones who are getting all this information from their faculty, their academic staff, and having these experiences on campus with clubs and in the classroom and with administrators. So you want everything to be of high quality that they are going to experience, so that when they graduate, they are ready to go into the field that they chose to study.
And because higher education institutions are so complex, it requires a complex approach. So how does research development and educational training fit together? How does institutional governance fit with a quality assurance system? And so what a QA program does is bring all of these entities together, everybody working in concert to produce a quality product or a quality system. The outcome to that, and the argument against quality assurance is that we found in Turkey is, or at Eskişehir, is, well, we have there's no reason for us to do it because there's no penalty if we don't do it. But that's not what quality assurance is about. Quality assurance is about how you view your work, how you view the outcome. What that does is it leads to confidence in your organization. It leads to confidence in your institution that you're meeting societal needs. Mm-hmm. And so if you don't take that to heart, if you don't take that personally, and we have met many people on this campus that take that to heart.
Very personally.
They take it very personally. And then we've had others that are just feeling so busy that that's just another add-on. And we want to assure people that it's not just another add-on, that it's important.
When these graduates leave your institution, they are the ones who create the institution's reputation. If they are quality graduates, they are able to help society, they're able to be employed in society, then that quality that they bring with them from the institution out to society reflects back on the institution. And that's how institutions get their reputation. And so it's really important that everyone understand that that's why they have a part in this, that in a sense it's their reputation as well. And I have to say that in my experience over many years of working in accreditation and program review, I've found that they get it. Faculty and academic staff and administration all get it. It's just getting everyone going in the same direction at the same time.
So it's worth to note and emphasize that it's everyone's responsibility.
Yes.
I mean, quality assurance.
Yes.
Maybe the next question is connected with the previous question, and just to expand the awareness in depth, the following questions will be: why quality assurance is important for ESTÜ, for Turkish higher education system?
Well, I mean, beyond what we just talked about is that, that establishing that reputation, I think that one of the issues in Turkish higher education is that you're relatively new. You do have old institutions. Whether we like it or not, old tends to be perceived as more valuable. So the perception is that Istanbul University, because it's 900 years old, is more valuable than some other university. There is a lot of view on this campus that Anadolu is an old university, well established, and that Eskişehir Technical University is new and we don't have the resources and we don't. What quality assurance does is it levels the playing field. It aligns what that criteria and the standards of behavior and the standards of the processes are the same at Eskişehir Tech as Istanbul University, as Sakarya University, as Kocaeli, as Istanbul Tech University. All universities that we've been to, we've viewed, we've been involved with, they all have the same view. They can all be at that same level. The attitude of quality assurance really is about, do you want to get better? Now, if a university doesn't want to get better, well, then there's going to be a differentiation, right? But we can't all, in the United States, we can't all be Harvards. But we can be equal to Harvard, Yale, Princeton when we approach what we do in a quality method. So we have accreditation agencies that come in and they review what we do. They look at our academic systems, they look at our administrative systems, they look at our research systems, they look at our co-curricular experiences, and they determine, okay, these are all at the level, the desired level. Doesn't mean that some aren't better and some aren't worse, but they're all at the desired level to present themselves as quality institutions. That's why it's important in Turkey. That's what's important about this whole process. That's what YOKOK's, that's what their desire is. That's what their ultimate goal is.
Yeah. In one of your seminar, I just, focus on, in your speech, predatory universities. I know it's related with accreditation, but could it be taken into consideration also with internal quality system, just to emphasize the importance of quality assurance for Turkey and also ESTÜ?
Well, this whole process of quality assurance and also accreditation and program review, all of these things prevent predatory institutions, because what happens is in every instance that I know of, they can't meet the standards. They can't meet those quality standards. So that prevents them from being able, in the United States, it's a high penalty if you're a predatory institution, because no one will hire your graduates. So you've gone to school all these years and no one will hire you. I don't know the situation of that here in Turkey, but that's my experience, is that these quality assurance pieces, the academic or the accreditation and the program review, all work to stop predatory institutions.
Right. Let's kind of give you a background of what a predatory institution and kind of put it in Turkish context. The coin of the realm in higher education is a degree. That's what you want. But that takes work. Everybody at this institution knows it takes work. What a predatory institution will do is they will not require you to put the work in. You can buy the degree.
Yeah, you can
either by right out buying the degree, or you can buy elements of the degree. And in the United States, money flows from the federal government to needy populations so that they can go out and pay for those things. And so what happens is you have a predatory university or college that plays with this. They understand this person wants a degree, I can get some money, I will sell them a degree, we're good. But they need an accrediting agency. So what happens is they go out and they find an accrediting agency that is not validated, that is not a proper accrediting agency, and they go in and they say, we are accredited by X, Y, and Z. So you have a predatory institution, you have a predatory accreditation agency, and then you have what's called a diploma mill. No value at the end. It's money lost to both the federal government and to the person going through, and it adds no value. That's what the problem with predatory universities, predatory agencies, and diploma mills. And we have set up a system, and I think YOKOK is that system in Turkey that mitigates those problems.
Yeah, you want your accrediting agencies to be, we have an agency that actually accredits our accreditors.
Yes.
So that any accrediting agency that becomes predatory is immediately shut down. So that we stop all the diploma mills, stop the paying for things that you don't really get any value from.
And that just happened in the United States last month.
Yeah.
So, thank you. And, it was I wonder it because it was my concern, one of my concerns.
Sure.
So, thank you for your explanation. And let me speak a little about program learning outcomes. How are program learning outcomes and course learning outcomes developed and assessed, considering aligning with quality assurance? What can you say about this?
Well, in Turkey, you have developed National Qualification Framework for Higher Education in Turkey, the NQFs, and these have the 21st century skills that are expected, and they also align to the ECTS, which are transfer credit protocols that allow students to move, from country to country, but it also puts in a set of standards that students are supposed to know and be able to do when they leave the institution. Along with that, you have also learning outcomes program learning outcomes that are standards by maybe your field of study and your discipline. They might be best practices. They could be standards that are developed by an accrediting agency such as MUDAC or FEDIC. And those standards then would also, for engineers in particular, for MUDAC, those would be used in your classroom and in your courses to show and demonstrate what students are learning. So the reason you have program learning outcomes is to demonstrate what students know and are able to do at the end of their program. When they finish and graduate, we can say that we can look at that program learning outcomes list and we can say students can demonstrate and do these things. These are the knowledge they have, this is the skills they have, and the attitudes that they should have that are appropriate for that discipline. And so that is really the purpose of program learning outcomes. Now, within programs you have courses, and students take courses. Well, course learning outcomes are supposed to align to those program learning outcomes to actually do the demonstration within the classroom setting or within the internship or their experiential learning. And so course learning outcomes align to program learning outcomes, which often align to accrediting agencies or to best practices or discipline-specific learning outcomes, and plus the NQFs. So that's kind of it all tied up in one package.
There is one other added things that we've looked at, and there is the ECTS. It's Eskişehir Tech's student learning outcomes. They have 5 student learning outcomes or student objectives, student learning objectives. And so it's kind of a building. What we did find, it was very interesting because, the whole concept about National Qualifications Framework is new to us because we don't have a national set of requirements. NQS provide a very interesting dynamic because when we did an examination of one of the programs, we found that what we would have looked at in program learning outcomes was what they did in NQFs. And so my original thought was, well, this is how all of these learning outcomes in a Venn diagram, how they all fit in the middle. I found out that it was just one big thing of learning outcomes. These are what we want, or the institution wants, for their students to know and be able to do, and the attitudes associated with that, as Dr. Teresa said. But they're all very nicely packaged. It should not be very difficult for a student to understand what a program does in Turkey or at Eskişehir Tech. It's just they're there, right in front of them. They show how they align, and in many cases, they can look at a course and see exactly where they fit that program of learning. So that's a positive that we've discovered here.
Well, and another positive piece is all of them are online. So you can go out and look at your career path, whatever you're going to have as a career, and you can see all of them, and you can also see how they're aligned to the NQFs. And so it's really interesting that the government has done a very, very nice job of actually aligning that process and making it very transparent to students, as long as students are aware they're out there and know where to find them.
Yeah.
And this process actually started with the European National Qualifications Framework, this association, UNQUA, and the Bologna process. And that was the purpose of that. And Turkey is a member of that process. So these national qualifications frameworks are done at each country within the Bologna process, within the European higher education area. Turkey's got their own. They're called HETRs, Higher Education, National Qualifications Framework for Higher Education in Turkey. That's what you'll see. That's what you'll see in the institutions. That's what you'll see on the Yoke page that have all of the NQS for every program, or for most programs. I don't think they're totally caught up yet.
Well, and the other interesting thing is by looking at these program learning outcomes, industry where graduates are going to go to work can actually respond and make comment to an institution. They may say, well, and also to YOCOC and to Yoke. And they can say, you know, what we're seeing, our industry has changed. And so our learning outcome needs to change for that, so that you can meet what we need now. Because with technology, especially you're a technological institute, you deal with a high level of technology. You're going to have to review these quite often because the technology moves so quickly. And so this helps the institution stay aligned with what's happening out in the world after a student graduates and goes out to employment.
So special thanks to our leaders, you know, just to establish this system.
Right.
And what about S2? I mean, to you, how is S2's process in quality assurance, you know?
Well, I would say, quite frankly, they're working very diligently to try to infuse this into every part of the campus. So in trying to create this quality assurance culture, they are working really hard to do that. And they're trying to get lots of feedback from people all over campus, which is part of that culture development. And they are making really, I would call, if I were in their classroom and talking to a student, I would say you're making steady progress toward reaching that goal.
I would agree. I mean, what ends up happening in any evaluation is you review evidence. Now, I looked at the ISER, I looked at the strategic plan. They are very complete documents, very lengthy documents, and sometimes they're dense documents, but they provide a very good picture of the efforts. We've looked at the websites, we've talked to people. And so, yes, you can see that they are making progress, they are moving in the right direction. But I always want to make there's a caveat there. Identification of barriers to the implementation of a quality assurance process is essential for leadership. And I think that they understand that. They identified in the ISER problems that we're having or areas that we want to really focus on. And that tells me that they know this. They know what those are. But being very specific, when you start to look at what are those barriers, you know, barriers can be everything from philosophical differences to knowledge and awareness differences to resources and financial resources that are necessary. And so while I agree with Dr. Teresa that they're making progress, I do think that focusing on some of the barriers that are going to be evident in implementing a system are going to have to be addressed. And those barriers are the same at YOCOC as they are at Eskişehir Tech. They're the same barriers in every entity that I've ever been involved in that is trying to change a system or trying to implement a new system. It's not good enough to just create policy and process. You have to identify how it's going to be practiced. And in order to do that, you have to identify the barriers that would mitigate that process.
And that will be part of, we talked about the Plan, Do, Check, Act process that is continuous improvement. And that will be part of that process. They've got a good plan. They have been through the cycle. So they've been through once. They're starting a second time into the cycle. So now they can see if there are changes that they made during the last round of the cycle have actually improved things and have met some of the barriers. And so this will be a continuous improvement process. I hate to beat that one to death, but that's really what this is all about. It's planning, implementing it, checking to see what happened, and then acting upon that. And so that process goes over and over and over again. And I would also like to make your audience aware that all of these documents that explain how this process occurs, that show that demonstrate what is expected. There's also all the ISERs are out there for every institution in the country that has completed the process. And so they can go out and look online at yococ.gov.tr and get all these and look at them and see what everyone's doing. That's the really wonderful, transparent part of this process, is that you can see what all the institutions are doing.
And one of the things that I talked to the Vice Rector about was this concept of looking and identifying peers. Who are your peer institutions? Who are your aspirational peers? What are they doing? One of the things I talked to YOCOC about when I was there a couple of weeks ago was, how do you highlight success so that another institution can look at that success and say, huh, they're doing things that we might want to do, we might want to implement. And feeding off Dr. Teresa's, discussion about plan, do, check, act, and I talked to the Vice Rector about this as well. People love to plan, and they love to do the do. It's the checking and the changing that creates the greatest problem. So we love to do the do, and there's nothing unique about Eskişehir in doing the do.
Okay.
They're probably better on the planning than many are. It's the check and the act piece. It's the measurement and using those measurements to change that process to change the entire organization to achieve quality.
And I would add that, as with all institutions, change is hard.
Oh yeah.
Change is very
Yes.
difficult. People like to stay in their very secure abilities. They don't really want to change to something new. But we live in a time in which everything is changing.
Yeah.
Because of technology and because of economics. The world is more interconnected, more globally focused. And so we're in a time in which change has to occur. Because our young people who graduate from our institutions, they're probably going to change their job multiple times over their lifetime because the industry will close down and they have to find another job. So they're probably going to have to return to an institution and get refreshed and learn some new skills in order to maintain their viability as an employee. And so I think change is really hard, but you got to do it.
So, let me ask one more question.
Are you sure you want to ask another question?
This is going to be the final question, And how can we find more information regarding Turkish higher education quality assurance programs?
Well, if you will go to yokak.gov.tr, you will find all this information there.
Oh.
And I would encourage people to read it so that they become more informed. And I would especially encourage students. This is their education, and this would give them insight into the processes that'll be going on their campuses all across Turkey.
Okay.
And to be targeted on that, there's a rubric of which the institution is going to be measured on. Download the rubric. Look at the rubric. Make sure you understand what the different elements, what the expectations are, what they're really asking. Because that's some of the things we found was that there's misperceptions about the rubric. So be specific, be targeted in your research, just like you would be if you were doing research anyplace else. But Teresa was actually, the best place to do is go to the YOKAK website and get as much information as you can. Don't go into this blind, because it's a lot of work.
Yeah, and the thing about the rubric is, just to kind of end with the rubric piece, is that the rubric has really a very good description of what the expectations are. And it's leveled. So where are you in the process? It's not a checklist, it's a level. And so what it does is it says, well, here's where you are if you're beginning to put this in place. So you're less mature, all the way up to if you're very mature and you're actually demonstrating products or projects or things that other institutions might like to copy or to be a part of their institution. And so I think it's really important that you realize that the rubric is about moving through the process to being a high, efficient, and effective organization as a higher education institution.
Okay. So before finishing the meeting, the conversation, would you like to say anything else?
I think only that Eskişehir has been wonderful. Everybody has been friendly and supportive to us because sometimes we can't find things and don't know where things are. And so they've been very helpful. They've directed us to different places to find information. They've been very forthcoming in the information. And we think, this is going to be an institution that is growing and is growing into a great institution. So we're very happy to be here and to be part of the process.
I can only add to that's just been a very enjoyable experience. And We got to stop eating so much at lunch. These are massive meals.
Then let's finish.
No, it's just been a wonderful experience. Everybody's been very nice and very open to our comments, very receptive, and I echo Dr. Teresa's ideas that this institution is going to grow. It's going to move in the right direction. But sometimes, just like when you're a kid, there's growing pains, and you're going to have to go through that growing pains. Okay. But this process should help you.
Thank you very much. And it was a great pleasure for us to have with you. And on behalf of everyone, special thanks to our rector, Professor Dr. Tuncay Değeroğlu, and Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Gürsoy Arslan, and also advisor to director, Professor Dr. Abidin Kılıç, and all the staff of Radio ESTÜ, instructor Füsun Adar and İhsan Tarık, Çelik, and other staff. I would really like to thank all of them just to provide us this program. Thank you for everyone, and thank you for you again. See you.
Thank you.